Never, never. Can psychedelics, oh wait, no. Can taking psychedelics. Yeah, there we go.
Can taking psychedelics alter our core beliefs? Can taking psychedelics alter our core beliefs? You're listening to Technical News Reading, presented by Hakeem Alibokis Alexander here on the Wisdom app. Social Audio Inc., presented for World Reading Club in association with Uniquilibrium. This edition's reading focus comes to us from technologynetworks.com and is titled, Can Psychedelics or Can Taking Psychedelics Alter Our Core Beliefs? Under the categories of Neuroscience News and Research, published December 13th, 2022. Original story from Johns Hopkins University. Johns Hopkins medicine researchers continue their exploration into psychedelics and how these drugs may produce a wide range of profound changes in perception, cognition, and mood. In a recent study published on November 1st in the Journal of Psychopharmacology, experts from Johns Hopkins Center for Psychedelic and Consciousness Research explored belief changes related to psychedelic experiences. They found that a single psychedelic experience increased a range of nonphysicalist beliefs as well as beliefs about consciousness, meaning, and purpose. Further, the magnitude of belief changes was associated with qualitative features of the experience. For the study, researchers analyzed data gathered between August 2020 and July 2021 on 2,374 people who had a belief-changing psychedelic experience. Participants averaged 35 years of age and were predominantly male, 67%. Almost half of the participants, 43%, indicated that the belief-changing psychedelic experience was their first. For the survey, participants rated how they felt about 45 belief statements from before to after they had the psychedelic experience, as well as the time they filled out the survey. The results of the analysis revealed the beliefs were divided into 5 factors. 1. Dualism, a philosophical position that the mind and body are separable. This is a view that many people hold intuitively, that the mind and body are separate. 2. Paranormal/spirituality. This factor covered a range of supernatural/paranormal/spiritual beliefs, including the existence of telepathy, disembodied spirits, and existence of self after death, communication with the dead, reincarnation, and whether some people can predict the future or move objects with their mind. 3. Non-mammal consciousness refers to whether insects, trees, and rocks are capable of having a conscious experience. 4. Mammal consciousness refers to non-mammal and mammal consciousness and whether these are capable of having conscious experience. For example, cats and sheep are capable of having a conscious experience. 5. Superstition refers to beliefs that breaking mirrors, the number 13, and black cats bring bad luck. Results of the analysis revealed increases in beliefs related to the first 4 factors. In contrast, belief changes for superstition were not as significant. Examples of increases in non-physicalist beliefs included increased belief in point. The mind is a different kind of existence, a spiritual way of being. Point. The universe is conscious. Point. The mind is immaterial and it works with the brain to generate our behavior. Point. Inanimate natural objects, e.g. rocks, are capable of having conscious experience. Point. There is a hidden or deeper purpose to life and all of existence about which many people are unaware. Point. There are hidden or deeper meanings to everyday events beyond both simple factual explanations and more complicated scientific explanations for understanding the world. Up to this point, we have under-theorized and under-emphasized psychedelic-induced belief changes, says Sandeep Nayak, MD, lead investigator and assistant professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. Guardrails against certain belief changes in clinical use are important, but the extent to which such non-naturalistic beliefs may be therapeutic is unclear. There's much more to learn here. The percentage of participants who identified as believers, e.g. in ultimate reality, a higher power and or God, etc., increased from 29% before the psychedelic experience to 59% after the experience. At both the factor and individual item level, higher ratings of mystical experience were associated with greater changes in beliefs. Belief changes assessed after the experience, on average 8 years later, remained largely unchanged at the time of the survey. The magnitude of belief changes is strongly associated with mystical experience ratings, which are assessed without reference to supernatural beliefs, says Roland Griffiths, Ph.D., the Oliver Lee McCabe III, Ph.D. professor in the neuropsychopharmacology of consciousness at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine and founding director of the Johns Hopkins Center for Psychedelic and Consciousness Research. Major features of such experiences include a sense of connectedness, preciousness, and validity. These features may account for changes in beliefs, such as increases in a sense of purpose and meaning of life, and that the universe is conscious. The researchers say that future studies at the center will focus on empirical psychedelic research on secular spirituality and well-being. Reference: Nayak SM, Singh M, Yaden DB, Griffiths RR. Belief changes associated with psychedelic use from the Journal of Psychopharmacology. This article has been republished, and material may be edited for length and content. For further information, contact the cited source, which is Johns Hopkins University. You've been listening to Technical News Reading, presented by Hakeem Ali Bokus Alexander here on the Wisdom app. Social Audio Inc., presented for World Reading Club in association with Uniquilibrium. This edition's reading focus came to us from technologynetworks.com and is titled, Can Taking Psychedelics Alter Our Core Beliefs? Hello, Desiree. How you doing?
I am doing well. How are you?
Good.
I just wanted to add, I kind of joined a little bit late, but I did catch the tail end of what you were saying, and I thought it was pretty fascinating, but all I have is like kind of a mixture of like anecdotal evidence and I guess from what I've heard from others. But I think that I definitely support what the studies are showing, and I just wanted to like add. I think that one of our fundamental a fundamental nature of the human race is we find a sense of purpose in, kind of believing in a higher power, a deity, a god, what have you. And so I definitely see that as a positive thing. If psychedelics were to, whether it's true or not, I do see it as a positive because, if you take a look at, like, for example, the like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it eventually leads to,
self-actualization.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so if a psychedelic can aid someone into kind of reaching that point. I think that's a huge positive. So, I just wanted to thank you for sharing all of that. And,
And how do you feel about that? Have you taken psychedelics, and or do you have any spiritual or religious beliefs?
I have taken psychedelics, and I guess prior to doing so, I used to be actually like super Christian growing up, and then I kind of became more agnostic. I was just like, I don't know, who am I to know? I have taken psychedelics, and the experiences that you go through when you're on a psychedelic are just so. It's things that, if you think about what the mind, like dreams, for instance, like they're crazy, like they're unrealistic sometimes, but it's stuff that like we can conceptualize because we've seen it, we've witnessed it. And psychedelics sometimes create imagery and like sensations and feelings that like you haven't been exposed to before. So, I find it hard to like think that the brain would, I guess in so many words, be able to come up with something like that just on its own, I think there is like I think there definitely could be a link between the two, because I've considered myself spiritual, I guess, ever since then. Not necessarily like, a human-like deity, but I definitely believe that there's, more to our souls. I do believe that there's like, I don't, it's still kind of like agnosticism in a way, but but it's more or less like, I'm not like, there isn't anything. I'm just like, there's something and I don't know what it is. And it kind of, it's comforting in a way, definitely. Cause, agnosticism is kind of scary, cause it's kind of like, oh, what if I'm wrong? What if I should have picked a religion and, I die? But like, it brings a kind of peace to you because, it brings this understanding that the universe has, things at work that are way beyond our capacity to understand with our five senses. So
if I got this correctly, you feel like first you said you were super Christian, but after your psychedelic experience, you feel like you're more spiritual, but mainly agnostic, meaning that you don't know, really.
No, it was more, it was Christianity too, like prior to taking psychedelics. I grew out of
Christianity first, grew out of that. Okay.
Yeah. And then the psychedelic experiences that I had kind of brought me back to spirituality, and not in the same way, not in a Christian way, but in like just trusting the universe. I believe that many things are possible. I believe that, like God is kind of like, there's theories that we're all connected, that like, like the universe, like we're made of the stuff of space, so, you could think about it in a way as like, we're all God. You could think of it as, like you really have no way of knowing, but, I will say that the psychedelic, trips that I had, there was one that was so healing for me that I came out of it like in tears, like bawling my eyes out, not out of sadness, but out of relief, because I got this overwhelming sense of like, everything is going to be okay. It brought this peace to me, because I also used to fear death, especially when I was agnostic, because now I didn't have this heaven to cling on to.
So hold on for a second. So you're saying that you were, so Christianity, didn't know, then agnostic, and then the psychedelic experience brought you where to now? Because is there any particular...
back to spirituality in a way of like, I don't know. I don't know what forces could be at work in the universe. I haven't really, I guess, like delved in deep enough to like, experience a deity, per se. I feel like the presence of something, I guess. I feel like there's a presence of something in the universe. I feel like things are, kind of like we're predestined in a way to like, I don't know. It made me believe in souls, I guess. I have trouble, articulating it properly, but I believe in souls. And I believe that a soul doesn't start when you're born, and it doesn't end when you die. I believe that the soul is kind of eternal, and that was a very peaceful thing for psychedelics to bring me back to, because the fear of death that I had, before, when I was agnostic, or even when I was Christian, what if I did the wrong thing and ended up, going to hell? It really brought this sense of just peace and comfort, and just understanding that if, your heart's in the right, it kind of more of, I guess, maybe like a Buddhist perspective, if you want to, if you want to, I guess,
choose a philosophy.
Yeah, it's the philosophy aspect of it, but ultimately, what was most valuable to me was feeling like there was something out there that cared about me. There was something out there that needed, to like heal me. And it was very, very therapeutic, more therapeutic than any therapy session that I'd ever went to. I didn't need to touch another psychedelic for a long time after that.
Okay.
It was really good.
So you don't say, so you're not saying that you're agnostic anymore?
No. I just don't know what's at work. I guess, when I was saying, kind of agnostic now, I was more so saying I don't know what kind of deity or what kind of forces could be at play.
But there's something.
But there's something, and there's no more doubt that there, could not be something,
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a very valuable experience to me.
It still sounds, but you don't exactly know. Okay, I'm wondering where that would fit in, because you don't know what it is, but there is something, but you're not calling it God.
I call it God because I don't really have, another word for it. I reject the idea of a God being like a human-like deity.
So an anthropomorphized deity, like how most people think of man's created in the image, maybe up in space somewhere on a throne, eyeing the prices of Honda every year and throwing lightning bolts at sinners.
Yeah, no, not a man. I think that it's not a human-like deity. I think that it's something beyond what we're able to experience here, unless maybe psychedelics do kind of introduce you to that realm. Drugs are powerful, so they can they can definitely play tricks on your brain. So I don't want to full-fledged say yes, this is what it is, but it does. It just reframes your whole concept of time, of your understanding of your place in the universe. You realize how small you are. You realize that just so many things, and it actually kind of refueled an interest in spirituality. And I'm looking for something. I'd like to find a religion that I sit comfortably with. So it kind of also propelled me into looking into things that might bring me peace and might make living the rest of my life as a human a little bit more comfortable.
Sure.
Definitely triggered it triggered a reinterest in finding spirituality, because I was missing that. I didn't want to be a Christian anymore, but I wanted to feel like there was something more to us than just living and dying on this planet.
Right. So
I'm confident that there's something at play.
So you're confident. It's a very comforting thought, I think.
Yeah.
Something that do you think that's something more that you want to believe that there's more, or that you need to, or that So there's maybe that you want to or need to, or that for sure.
I know for sure. I'm just not sure what it is, which is why I'm kind of trying to explore different aspects of spirituality on my own now. See what kind of I can make sense of. It's difficult because I'm a natural born skeptic. I used to be very I need to see it to believe it type thing, and psychedelics really, really just kind of tore down that wall for me. And of course, you can't do them all the time, so eventually, you kind of return to homeostasis.
Who says?
Of being a skeptic, and me being skeptical, it's kind of hard to turn that off in the back of my mind. What if it was just me being under the influence of this substance? But I have to keep in mind that I remember the trip that I came out of just crying out of relief. I remember the most intense deja vu that I can't even put words to it. I don't think there's words in the English language that can really describe what you experience kind of when you're going through these things, but definitely confident that we have something out there dictating, helping, controlling, orchestrating the universe in some way. So it just brought a sense of resolve and a sense of interest back to me.
Sure.
I guess.
Now, the study said that they followed up with people 8 years later and experienced the ideas that they came up with, or their belief changes weren't altered, even though 8 years had passed in a follow-up study.
Yeah, I think that since it's kind of triggered an interest in me to look into a subset of spirituality, that brings me comfort, and I think that's just going to continue to grow. So I think 8 years from now, I'm probably gonna hopefully I'll have found something that brings me comfort, like something I can practice every day and believe in. It may not be the right thing, I kind of like to think that there's, multiple paths to, I guess, what I would like to hope is an afterlife. Or it could be reincarnation. I don't know what it is, but I just know that I felt this utter sense of everything's going to be okay, and it's not over when you're dead. The soul lives forever. I think that's very true.
Well, maybe we can talk about that sometime. We can both figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank
you so much for hearing me out and asking me.
Yes.
That was very good food for thought. It's going to give me some stuff to think about for the rest of today. So.
All right, Desiree. Thank you for calling in, and we'll connect soon.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care.
You have a good one.
You too. We have Miss Graciela Moore in the queue. Hello. Let's see. And so after the follow-up study, of course, we said that we read that a lot of people still feel like they have these experiences persist. Graciela, hello. How you doing?
Hello.
Thanks
hello.
for
Can you hear me?
chiming in. So you're wholesome, huh?
Of course.
No psychedelics?
No. What I meant was, I don't like. Okay, so I've done acid once a long time ago, like in my 20s, and my question was, like, is acid a psychedelic? Because I don't even know, and that's because I don't even know whether it's a psychedelic or not. That's what leads me to the hashtag wholesome AF, right? Like,
well, it is technically considered a psychedelic, so yes. It definitely is.
That was an interesting journey, and let me tell you, I was such an irresponsible child. I mean,
really,
we popped that on the road, and you should never be driving a vehicle while you're under any of these things.
Well, some people will argue with you.
Oh my gosh. No, man. I mean, I wasn't driving, and I guess that's why I was like, woohoo, yeah, I don't care. Obviously, I was very rebellious growing up. I always wanted to do everything opposite to what my parents told me. And I think it's part of that not being supervised type of, you don't even care, so I'm just going to go do it, right?
Some people go the other way.
But I've never done anything else, so I'm not sure how I can chime in.
Well,
but so to answer your question though, can taking sex alter our core beliefs? I mean, after only doing it once, I don't think it's fair to really answer it definitively. But I'm going to say no, and the reason why is it's because you take any mind-altering substances, let's just call it that, and that could be anything from actual. Boutique drugs to, mugwort tea, which is an herb, right? That you can smoke or you can boil, and it's medicinal, and I don't know what else. So these are mind-altering substances, even though they're, natural. And I just feel like even though you take them, when you're sober, you get back to real life. So unless you're going to be high on those things 24/7, then you're living just a different reality altogether. But once you come down from that high, your life is still the same. And I just don't see how, well, yeah, I get it. Because you were just discussing something really interesting, which is, how your whole mindset could switch depending on what you see or what you experience during the high. So
yeah, there's a couple examples of that. There are two researchers from, one's name is Humphrey Osmond, one is Abram Hoffer. They were both working with the author of the book Doors of Perception, Aldous Huxley. Have you heard of it?
No.
So he wrote this book after his experience when under psychiatric supervision of both of these psychiatrists, and they give him psilocybin, and it's from a cactus. Anyway, it's a hallucinogen, and he then wrote the book The Doors of Perception, which inspired the name of the band, The Doors. And so The Doors got their name directly from this. But the other claim to fame these guys had, besides being the psychiatrist from Margot Kidder, who was the woman who played Lois Lane in the Superman movies, they worked with Bill W., who was the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they gave psychedelics to the alcoholics in the program, and 50% of them never drank alcohol again due to their experience that they had with psychedelics. So it does...
They were scared out of it.
Maybe.
I'm kidding.
And then also there's something... Michael Persinger at Laurentian University recorded electromagnetic frequencies from nature called earthquake lights that happened in Japan. And these frequencies, when people were caught in them, would cause them to have hallucinations and different type of experiences. And him and another guy named David Corin built something called the God Helmet, or the Corin Octopus. And when they replayed these frequencies to the vestibulocochlear nerve, or the 8th cranial nerve pair, they were able to reproduce similar experiences that they called hyperreligiosity. So there is some lasting effects that these different type of mind-altering experiences can have. So maybe you're just an anomaly. And Tyler, I see you in the queue there. But yeah, maybe you're just an anomaly somehow. Maybe some people don't have those. I don't think that mine have changed at all. But I was also very, very naughty with psychedelics.
I just don't think you can really experience something like that from just dropping one drop of acid. That's what I mean. And so this is why my example.
Yeah.
That's
right?
Yeah. Well, this is what I believe, that my example is not helpful in this conversation.
It is helpful because well, a lot of people have only done it once, and it's changed. That's what it was talking about. Even some of the people in the study have only done it once. And so it's changed.
Yeah, I was totally not impressed. I was like, okay. And so here's the thing. And I wonder if, knowledge is power, right? Mm. And so when I dropped acid, I would never put something in my body without doing research first. And so I remember, doing my homework and figuring out that acid really affects your retina and your eyes, and it could actually cause, cataracts and other visual ailments very early on in life if you do it consistently. And so I saw what I saw, and it was like, yeah, because it's affecting my eyes. Like, this is not going to really change who I am, or it's not even at a soul level. Like, this is just my eyes telling me that this door is taller than it actually is. But I know better than that. Once I get off this high, the door is going to be the same size. And so nothing really impressive happened during my acid trip. It was just a visual thing, very much like watching Pink Floyd's The Wall, or, watching a kaleidoscope. But then you take the kaleidoscope off your eyes and you see the world again, right? So I just wasn't impressed, which is actually why I never did it again. Because if I'm not impressed, why would I waste my time and my money?
Right. Well, I did lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of it, and it didn't change mine either. So that's an interesting thing.
So you're the anomaly, not me. I was just a short experiment.
But yeah, it didn't change anything. Like, I remember once, though, was with my friend Diego, and we were walking around everywhere, and I was like, there are lizards. I was like, And then we walked into his house, and he has this big giant cage with his iguana inside of it. And I said, well, if that's a lizard, and that's a lizard, and that's a lizard, then what's that? So, but it didn't change my belief system at all. I did that all on my own some years later. But then again, I always thought about...
And you did it consciously. You didn't do it in some random psychedelic trip.
Right, exactly.
Excuse me. Yeah.
So
I think it also... sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think there may be some powerful underlying theme there that we can definitely investigate. But I can't be on this call for long. My husband is gone.
Sure. Okay.
But
well, I've got Tyler in the queue, so...
Oh, good. So let me just share this, and then you can do with it what you may. But I've always had a spiritual connection, so let me just bring that up really quick. I've always known, it's not about names, and it's not about faces.
Sure.
I've just always known that I have a soul. I've always known that I am a spiritual being first, having a human experience. And I didn't get to hear that bit until I was an adult, right? Like, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. I didn't hear it in those words until actually very recently, I would say in the last 10 years. But I knew that as a child. And so when you have those core beliefs kind of solidified, there's no drug that can change it.
Right.
I guess that would be one of the clues as to my experience or lack thereof. All right, I'll be listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Graciela. So yeah, maybe, as to Graciela's point, maybe some people aren't really as firm as they might think they are in their core beliefs, and that might change it up. I would agree with that. Hello, Tyler Zuka. I believe this is the first time we're speaking. Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So I guess I'll try to backpack off of the two people you just spoke to. So, so I think she said, like, she might have had, if I heard her correctly, she might have had spiritual beliefs to begin with. Is that what she said?
Well, yes.
So, yeah, okay. So maybe it won't change it for you if you have them, because you kind of have them. However, I also don't think she had, like, an experience on it, if that makes sense.
Well, many people in the study already had psychedelic or spiritual beliefs before, so...
in front of the person you just spoke with.
Right. But
okay.
For you to say that because she already had, it didn't change it, doesn't track with the other people who have had spiritual beliefs already, the people in the study.
I wasn't challenging that. I was more saying, I don't think it would make you, like, not spiritual, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Now, my personal experience, I was agnostic most of my life, almost all my life. Didn't use them as a tool for spirituality. Use them as a tool to kind of understand myself and try to find out, like, where I might have had faults in the past with personal relationships. And then I kind of had a weird, I call it a coming to Jesus moment, but, like, not like Jesus as we know it, but I don't know. It was just like this experience. It was very personal to me, and I really can't put words to it, but it was like understanding that, like, things in this universe are so beautifully complex that we would never be able to understand them. And that, to me, is like a weird form of God, I guess, is to me. And so I opened up the door for me as to spirituality in the sense that I think Desiree was trying to explain. If that makes any sense with you.
Okay. Well, it makes sense what you explained. I don't know if that's exactly what she was, but yeah, I understand the idea that it can change certain things about people, and you can have some experiences that maybe clue you into something.
Yeah, I mean, I was agnostic to I was basically atheist for the last few years of, I guess, agnosticism, because I wouldn't even entertain the idea of it, and now I'm open to the idea of, like, say, like, not God as a Christian God, but like God as in, like, I guess I might use it as a cop-out for the unknown forces that be, but I don't know if that's a cop-out or if, like...
So, Tyler, let me just remind me, were you spiritual or religious before your psych kid? Okay.
No, and I never seeked it out.
Right.
Did you have other questions?
Well, just the further about your psychedelic experiences. You said that it did clue you into maybe something being more.
I don't know how or why I had an experience like I did, but I just remember like laying on the floor and just feeling like this strong feeling of love like wash over me.
Okay.
While like I was like just like at my apartment, like I wasn't with anybody, I wasn't like doing anything. I just like this just strong feeling of like comforting love wash over me, and like it could have been a drug, sure, I'll accept that, but at the same time it was something that I felt and experienced. So even if it was drug induced or not drug induced, why would I want to say that like even if it was drug induced, why would I negate the feeling when I experienced it to begin with?
Right. That's a good point, because an experience that you have is just as real as anything else. Even when you have dreams and you have emotions and you feel them, sometimes people wake up crying. Like even Desiree came out of her experience crying. Different than dreams, but if you remember them, then that's a key thing too. Memory is something very interesting. So if you remember the experiences, you draw off of that as part of your life experience.
It's taught me that language is very limiting in trying to convey meaning. Because it's very limiting. It's hard to describe, like, I guess a feeling. It's almost impossible to describe like a feeling, like if it's like an experience that you feel. And it's frustrating, but I've learned to accept that. But like I never realized how limited, I guess, like every day was without having ever experienced psychedelics. It opened up the door to an entire possibility of endless possibilities. It made me very much more open-minded to almost anything. And I'm not doing a really good enough job like explaining what I want to say.
Well, it's okay. I mean, that's why I'm not leading. I'm not going to ask you any leading questions. I just want you to see if you can explain it yourself. But if, like I told Desiree earlier, I mean, we can definitely open up some space and talk about it earlier. I mean, I definitely have my own ideas about things, and but I don't push those.
I guess, like, to put it simply, it's very humbling. Very humbling. And that's probably the best way I can describe it. Because
I get that.
You don't know everything, and sometimes when you lose your sense of self, you come back to realize that, well, I can't really like say what. It's just humbling. Yeah, humbling. I just want to leave it at that.
Well, good.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, so some of the, to recap it, if I'm correct, you said that you had a profound feeling of love like wash over you, and that also you felt very humbled by the experience. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
I think those are very significant things, Tyler.
Yeah, and like they still stick with me to this day. Like that was probably now 6 years ago.
Yeah, 6 years ago.
I've had my fair share of experiences. In fact, like I kind of use them as like a tool, personally, to, like I said, like better like myself and my place with the world. Like try to find out where maybe I'd fallen out with family or friends. Find out where I could view like my qualms with life from a different perspective to see like how I could resolve things, and it helped. And I think it helped me become a better person and be like, well, obviously maybe who I am today.
And Tyler, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
29.
Okay, so I know that Desiree is in her early 20s, and Graciela, I know her age as well. So it's interesting. So we have, some different age groups here. I'm older than all of you guys, but so do you feel like even now that this experience, you said you do remember it and it stuck with you, do you ever find yourself thinking about it out of the blue?
Like just randomly?
Yeah, like sometimes it just comes back to, or did this question, can taking psychedelics alter our core beliefs, kind of bring it back?
I think I do think about it quite a bit. I don't intentionally think about it. I just it just, I guess, comes to me. And I do a really poor job explaining like my idea or concept of God, but I explain it to people as kind of what I try to say to you is like, I say like, if you look at like the universe or even evolution itself, it's so beautifully complex that to me, that is God.
Right.
And that doesn't really explain it to many people, but it's a personal relationship sort of thing, and I don't know like how else to like say it other than it's just so beautifully complex that it's unfathomable to me.
But that's the other thing you did say. You said you had a very strong feeling of Jesus' experience that was very personal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't connected to any religion.
Yeah, it wasn't connected to any religion. It wasn't like I wasn't raised on any religion, so I couldn't even attribute it to any of that. So like I don't subscribe to any religion. I've looked at a lot since then. Looked at the histories of a lot. A lot of them kind of seem similar to each other in their own ways. Not all of them,
right?
But I don't think that there is a single one out there that might have the answer, because I feel like that'd be impossible.
Right.
I think there are things that we'll never know, and we won't know because we are limited in our ability to know.
Right. That's what it seems like, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. I love to explore it with people, and I will, because I like exploring concepts, and I love exploration of like mind and intellect, and even if I like being challenged as well, because I like to learn from them. And if I grow as a person, then I love that as well. So all that aside, is I'm okay with knowing that I won't know, but I'm open to try.
Right. I think that's a very good place to be in, Tyler.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for sharing, Tyler. Hope that we'll get to talk again soon.
Yeah, me too.
Right. Have a good one. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
All right. So, you've been listening to a Technical News Reading. I just spoke with Desiree, Graciela, and Tyler, and they just shared with me their experiences with psychedelics. To the question here of, can taking psychedelics alter our core beliefs? We were reading from technologynews.com, actually, which is a new one for me. Usually I'm reading from neurosciencenews.com, from NASA's websites, from techbriefs.com, Biotechniques International and such. But this one popped up into my email, and it's something that is very dear to my heart, something that I really love to explore. And so we had some different perspectives there about the experiences that everyone has regarding if it changed their core beliefs or not. I shared with Graciela that we both didn't really feel like, even though she has had one experience with psychedelics, I had multitudes, and neither one of us had our core beliefs changed by the experience, whereas lots of other people have, according to this research, and also other research that I pointed out from Abram Hoffer and Humphrey Osmond, the psychiatrist that worked with Aldous Huxley, who then wrote the book The Doors of Perception, which is where the band The Doors get their names from. They also are proponents of something called orthomolecular psychiatry, which was first talked about in a 1968 paper by Linus Pauling that was called Orthomolecular Psychiatry, and the subtitle was varying the concentrations of substances normally occurring in the body can control mental disease. And so there are lots of different things that can happen with our mind and altered states of consciousness. So if there's no one else, we're going to close out here. I appreciate that that I got to speak with Desiree, with Tyler, and Graciela today. And we've got one more coming up in the queue here. And welcome, Perceptions Today. How are you?
Hi, how you doing? My name's Paul.
Your name is what?
Paul, Paul.
Paul.
Yes.
I've never spoken to you before either. Welcome. How are you today?
Doing very well. I've obviously just wandered into yourself and seeing you're talking about psychedelics, and just as a brief thing for you to understand where I'm coming from, we talk about consciousness topics in all different areas, whether it be psychedelics, research papers, musicians, artists, all having different experiences with reality, whether it be also people with head injuries or neurological conditions. So when it comes down to this, obviously there's a lot of research when it comes down to psychedelics for helping with pain management and things like that. Those are kind of the areas that I'm interested in, as well as how people view reality and what it is to them. So coming across yourself today has been really nice and synchronicity. And only just catching you just before your ending. So I just want to say hello. It'd be quite nice to talk to you at some stage.
Well, we can talk. I have a few more minutes, about 10 minutes here before I have to move on. But I was just ending because I had spoken to a few people, and I might have droned on. You never know. I might have taken another 10 to 15 minutes. So what would you like? Is there anything specific you'd like to share? Because the question was, can taking psychedelics alter our core beliefs? And I spoke to Desiree, Graciela, and Tyler, and they all shared their experiences with me about whether or not it changed. Desiree said that it did alter her beliefs a little bit. Graciela said that taking psychedelics didn't at all. And Tyler said that he doesn't really think that it changed it that much, but it altered the way that his curiosity, more so to speak. And I hope I'm not mischaracterizing you, Tyler, but I believe that's where we're at on that. And myself, I've taken psychedelics so many times I can't even count it, because I had a friend who had a large supply of it, and but I also never changed my belief systems because of it. So I think that's interesting.
Okay, I can say from the research and the people that I've spoken to, when they have actually been in the right states, and again, it's going to depend on the body chemistry of the person, how they metabolize everything, and how that affects them to get there. It can, but what I've seen is it's beneficially added things to not their core beliefs, but added more. So, for example, if you only had one string to your bow, you'd end up with a couple more strings that may give you a better moral judgment and other things along those lines. And it is a fascinating topic to talk about. And again, unfortunately, we have a very short space of time. And again, I'm not going to tell you anything which is pulling the wool over your eyes, because there's no point in that. Otherwise, we're not going to have a good conversation on these topics. But with some of the people that I know,
I've been researching this and experiencing it for 30 years. I don't think there's any wool going to be pulled over my eyes. But
no, I just wanted to come from an honest point of view, because I've been in different places where you will have people come in and troll. They're not actually looking at it in the right perspective, and they haven't done their research, and they haven't looked at things correctly, and they want to make it. It's like any tool that you find in your toolbox. It can either be used for good. The hammer can be used for construction or destruction, depending on what you're using, what quantity. So there's all those things that are there on the table to discuss. But when it comes down to, say, consciousness and the way that you view it, I'm going to ask you again, just a quick overview. How do you view consciousness?
I don't know that. I'm not sure about the question. How do I view consciousness?
Okay, so let me put it from my point of view.
Sure.
And it can be wrong, I guess, at the moment. As far as I know, in 2022, this is how things kind of work, and this is how I feel about things. And again, these will stretch and change throughout the years when I learn more, hopefully. I found through having experiences, and that's whether it's been accidents, where I've had experiences outside of my body for like milliseconds, but I've actually seen myself away from my body at the point of impact of an accident. So I had visual, auditory, and also sensory information, which I shouldn't have, because my body was 30 feet below me when I was at the point above my body.
Right.
So that was the strange thing. That led me at a very early age to think, well, we're not really anchored in the body. We could be something else. So with all my research and thinking and everything else and the people I've come across and all the things so far, and again we're talking quantum physics and everything else, everything's entangled, and my whole objective is to try and find out what the origin point is of where all existence came from, which is going to take a long time, as you could imagine.
Right.
But we could be a signal that comes to the body, which is like an antenna, and you'll have two kinds of signals that come in. You'll have like an interference pattern, which is like your ego, and the other part is the informational part. So you go along living your life with the number of years, you pick up the experience, but when you die, it disappears. But because information and energy doesn't die, the signal part takes the information and goes back to source, whatever source is. But words is just not good enough to describe something we can't comprehend because we've never seen it before. So that's kind of where I go, and that's what I'm trying to look at and see how other people see things. And again, psychedelics have been, with different cultures, showing them either internal sections of their body and expanding and going elsewhere. And again, with anesthesiologists like, get this right, Stuart Hammeroff. Are you familiar with Stuart Hammeroff?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He was also featured in that What the Bleep Do We Know?
Yeah, so you've obviously either spoke today or possibly other people might have heard that the microtubules within the brain, which are inside the neurons, which are smaller packets, work like quantum computers pushing off light, which when they try and chill them down to absolute zero, they still find energy is leaking up from somewhere else and bringing in information. And it starts to get fascinating at that point because from other research and from other books, when people take psychedelics, it may be instead of expanding and going outside of your body, you might be going down within inside your body into the DNA where, as they say, it's a crystal structure. And that's not meaning like glass crystal. It's crystal, as you know.
It's a matrix.
Is a definition for just a structure of a pattern which is regular, like a chessboard is a crystal and a framework like that. So they might be going with internally down inside that and then going back to source. And again, this just leads me down wonderful ways of talking to people and, like yourselves, synchronistically finding you. And obviously, I'd like to learn of experience.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely connect and be able to talk about lots of things along these lines because, like I said, it's very dear to my heart and close to me about the experiences that I've had, which don't change my belief systems, any of them, but they just seem to point in some very interesting directions. I've always had an expanded view of existence in that because I've been a lucid dreamer consistently since I was 4 years old. So it started spontaneously, and now I invoke them at will.
Excellent. I've had the opportunity to realize that in some dreams that I wasn't really there because, say, for example, when I was 4 years old, I had an experience where it was a nightmare, but it was a village being destroyed. It was a Viking kind of environment. I was a small child walking through that, and within the dream, suddenly something told me that don't worry about all the blood and everything else. You're not really here. This is that. And then I've had other dreams where suddenly certain things have happened throughout my life, and we're talking up between kind of events that there's that little bit that goes, no, this is a dream state. Don't worry about it. But then again, dreams could be access to other realities, but because obviously there's so many different things and we don't understand everything properly. And I'm not putting it down in, concrete that that's what it is, but it suddenly makes you feel that there's something else going on that tells you information. And the people I've been able to talk to over the last few years or more have just really kind of confirmed we don't know everything, and we just need to kind of put everything on the table and be sensible about it and not go too crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot to explore in this realm, and it is so varied because of such varied experiences that we all as individuals have, and I do find a lot of common threads, and the main one being the existence or the continuance of consciousness beyond the body.
Oh, definitely. I mean, as I've said to you, I've had multiple accidents where this has happened, or even when I've been within an accident, it may seem to me to be real time, but to others, obviously I've reacted quicker, but I've had like 4 or 5 different scenarios quickly shown to me the best way to survive a situation and which one to pick. And I've done that. And I've done those things and come out with the least damage. But have you heard of the quantum suicide experiment?
Quantum suicide experiment? No, that is a new one for me.
Okay. It's a really good one to get a hard concept across to people. So, for example, this scientist decides that he wants to see whether he could be killed. So he sits in a chair, but in front of him, he set up a revolver with 6 bullets in it, and he has wires connected to a box.
Like Schrodinger's cat type of thing, huh?
It's a bit like that.
Okay.
But what happens with it is the spin of the particle will either pull the trigger and shoot him or not. But he keeps hearing it click, and after 100 times of it going click and the gun's not actually killed him, he thinks, well, obviously this is not correct. But then he realizes that in 100 different other universes or parallel realities, the gun has actually clicked, but he's the only survivor within that one because it's never actually happened to him. And then obviously it gives you that kind of viewpoint that maybe at every single point of accident in the other reality, you might have died to those people that have actually known you, but you just kind of crowned like the second hand on an analog watch into the next reality, where your consciousness may be in millions of different realities at the same time, but you might have just lost that one reality that you were in.
That's a very interesting perspective. It's something that I actually wished for would happen, because there was a time where I wished that I could swap myself with another of myself in another reality. And I wish that I could be there because of certain situations where I wish that I could go to where someone is still alive there.
Yeah. I mean, it is amazing. And I found that there are people, so for example, in 1991, there was a film called Final Approach. I'm not sure if you've seen it before, but it's about a test pilot. And he ends up crashing, and then he ends up in a waiting room, and then he ends up talking to a psychologist. Within the film, there are so many threads that this person has obviously not been able to communicate via talking to others, but the writer has put them into the film. And it was talking about epilepsy, life after death, how God could be, and other bits, but they're all subtle pieces within the film. And come 20 years on past that, I met up with other researchers and scientists who started talking about these things. And then when I went back to look at the film again, it was really hard to find because it didn't come out on DVD and other media formats for ages. That you suddenly listen to the soundtrack and some of the things in the background, and it really fitted in with some of the cutting edge neuroscience and other bits and pieces that were in 2005 and other places. And it was just amazing to suddenly go, wow, people are stimulated to either put it down in music or put it into art forms, and it's only later when you suddenly come up with the knowledge that you go, oh, well, there's the connection point. They couldn't express it in a proper way to give it to the masses, but only those that suddenly see it in a different format make connections to it. And there's a few authors that I know at the moment, independently, that they found that within biblical texts, I might say, let's go for the Christian one first off, a lot of the stories refer back and can be mimicked into biological structures of the human brain and how they function and how the nerves work and also how the chemical formulas work and the way that it goes. And then I was talking to a guy in India, and he had actually been looking at the Quran and finding the similar thing, that it was almost as if to get to the population who wouldn't actually understand biological information at a scientific level, we put it into stories and encode it that way amongst other information. So instead of having just straight text of saying, this is how you go down the shops, turn left, turn right, and do that, you have, this is the story of the man who picked up the apple, who wanted to go here, to do this, to do that. And there's so much layered within these texts of information, and it would only be smart to get people to do oral traditions, because then those that weren't technically minded could still say the stories to their children and to the others, and it'd still be passed on, and then suddenly you could unravel it later on.
It is a fascinating perspective that, Tyler earlier was talking about how he feels like language itself is inadequate, and there are a few other references where that idea is posited, that language is not adequate, or that there are more efficient forms of language. Where once there was something that I had come across where they found that all of the information about the universe and understanding in language could fit on something as big as like some type of coin, a small coin that you could fit in your hand. And it was just embedded in the grooves or these patterns in the coin, but it revealed all the knowledge, or at least an entire language could fit on that one coin.
Oh, definitely. Have you heard about Terence McKenna's kind of hypothetical theory about mushroom spores?
I do know about Terence McKenna, and is it that the mushroom spores themselves are each individual conscious entities?
Well, there's a version that, I haven't heard that version, but there's another, obviously, idea that he put was, if you were an intelligent species and you wanted to communicate information to another species on another planet, you could use spores because they are resilient. If they were on, say, a meteorite, they wouldn't burn up in that way. So then the spores would come to a planet, and then they would germinate and then produce the fruit, which is like the mushroom top, and be suitable for consumption. In doing that, whatever local species of animal that would consume it, when it ingests it, it would then get pictorial information within the brain or some other stimuli through the chemistry. Because there's no point encoding words and sending them out into the universe, because not everyone speaks the same language. But pictorial information and chemistry changes would be one of the common things, so that you would have that. And it would help out with evolution and along other lines that you might be just embedding information within their genes. And then somebody else wrote a book.
Seems like a very advanced form of that golden record that we sent out into space, right? With the pictures and the engraving.
It would be similar to that.
But much more advanced, like biotechnology.
A few of us got together and we were kind of discussing this idea, and we thought, well, why not have an idea where, okay, if you have that information, why not embed all the information you can at present into, say, the maternal line of the DNA, so that when the woman reproduces, that goes into the DNA of the offspring. And again, whatever they learn gets encoded further down the line, so you have, multiple people, and it gets greater and greater. So at the point of scientific discovery, that when they're looking at the DNA, they find it's encoded in a certain way that's a library system of information of what had gone on and everything else. And that would be amazing, because if they then got off planet and they still had that scientific experience and knowledge, but suddenly were hit with civilization, went down to Stone Age, the information would still be being encoded within that civilization. And then when they raise themselves up again and start looking back into their DNA, they could find it all. And it'd be better than putting, say, stone buildings or monuments or anything else, which could be eroded and taken away. And because it's always multiple species out there, you'd always have a percentage left to carry on the information being taken forward. And it really does get you onto some nice hypotheticals, thinking along those lines.
Paul, are you familiar with the scientific fact that women have a completely separate mitochondrial DNA from everyone else, and that they pass it on to their children, and only daughters, only other females can pass it on. Yeah,
that's what we were kind of thinking about with those kind of connections. But I mean, again, anything we can think about could be possible,
that's correct. Yeah, I believe that as well. Yeah,
imagination is a very difficult thing to come across. To have something really brand new without any other input to create it. And that's one of the big things, because I've always been very interested in source of where everything comes from. Because as you know, you need two or more things to make a reaction. But where do you get those things from in the first place? So everything kind of sounds very paradoxical at present.
Excuse me, I just entered a very noisy environment. I was in transit, but I should still be coming in clear. But yes,
so you're out and about walking. I mean, I'm here in the UK. Whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm in Virginia Beach, Virginia, the eastern part of the United States. And yes, I figured you might be in the UK. I know that there's a couple of organizations I follow out there that are doing psychedelic research, more open to it than in the United States. But the United States is coming around now because they can't quite help it getting away from it. So it's just so prevalent.
If you have the opportunity, or you probably are aware of Third Wave podcast.
Actually, I'm not. I mean, I might have heard of it, but I haven't listened to it.
The Third Wave podcast is all about how to use psychedelics within a medical environment to make it better, not just going out and getting wasted on psychedelics. It's literally for those with PTSD, or say using ketamine for helping with pain relief and doing it in the right environments and everything else. And they give lots of great content of what's going on in the cutting edge environment and what people are doing and what organizations to contact, etc. And over here in Greenwich,
I'm sorry. I wonder if that's a uniquely UK type of thing, because my mom, who was raised in England, my parents are originally from Trinidad and Tobago, but she was raised in England, and the first time she caught me, the first time I ever got high on marijuana, and she caught me that time with my friend at the time, Mike, she scolded us, but then later told me, if you're going to be doing this, you need to focus your mind and your thoughts and use the experience to better yourself and better your ideas and to educate yourself, because it's simply another way of looking at the world.
Oh, definitely. It's all intention. I mean, it may sound a bit woo, but the intention of when you go into something is like having a tool. I've had people that have used the ketamine, and they went in, they didn't have an idea of why they were using it, and where they should have been kept under in like 20 minutes to 2 hours, they popped out within 10 minutes, and they couldn't understand why. Then when they talk to many other people, as well as the person who administers it, they go, you've got to come focused with an intention of what you want to kind of try and solve. Once you're inside that environment and obviously relaxed and you're going through the process, then information will come to you to try and help you deal with your situation. Whether you actually act on that is up to you. It's not an immediate fix. It's like with most of the things, you're shown this is what you can do as a manual. Whether you read that manual is another point entirely.
Man, there's so much. We're definitely going to have a good old time discussing this a lot more in the future, because I appreciate how you reference various different sources and perspectives, and can see that there are many ways and many directions that this can go for just as many people. And because of just as many ways as we have a perspective about it, like how we're thinking. And earlier you mentioned how our specific biochemistry in relation to the hallucinogens or psychedelics, how that can have an effect on our experience. I did want to say earlier to that point that I had a lot of really profound hallucinations and even premonitions. For example, the guy who he was my best friend at the time, and his name is Lee Hoyer, and he distributed these chemicals and stuff like that for And so that's why I had readily free access to all of it that I wanted to, because I was his best friend and he just gave me whatever I wanted. And I remember one of the times I was at his house, I was sleeping over, and he had fallen asleep on his bed while I was talking to him. I was like kneeling at the foot of his bed, like with my arms draped over, and talking to him while he was laying down. And I watched his body decay into a skeleton and a tombstone appear by his head. And I remember these bluish, purplish kind of hues and tones in the room. And I later went to the shower, and then the wall disappeared in the shower, and it was raining. And the shower turned to rain. So it was very interesting how the current experience, was kind of incubated itself into the type of experience that I was having. But also, very sadly, within a few months after I left from Florida, where we lived, and moved to California, he was killed. And so I feel like maybe I was given that information beforehand, or it could just be a coincidence, right? But I've never seen anything like that before or after in a psychedelic experience. I don't normally have these like death and skull type of things like that in the experiences. So I just thought that in retrospect, I thought it was interesting. I didn't think about it at the time. Yeah. And
can I ask you,
several,
you said blue and purplish, yeah, colors?
All those kind of hues, but also very faint undertones of greens somehow, but it tended to stay in that cooler end of the spectrum.
The reason why I tell you, why I ask about the blue, within my research between people who have epilepsy and entities that guide them, as well as people who have seen other entities as children when they would not even be talked to, like 2 or 3, with, they wouldn't be given science fiction kind of ideas about different individuals, and also some others that have got synesthesia. The common factor that seems to turn up is blue. Either the entities are blue,
I'm one of those,
or they see blue within certain sounds that cause their synesthesia to trigger, or what was the other one? There's a load of them, and it just seems that when we've been
I'm one
having
of those synesthetic people, by the way.
Ah, beautiful. I say that, not that I'm bringing out my large net and taking hold of you and coming to talk to you, but I have connections to a woman who has 5 of her senses connected to synesthesia. So that would be a topic that I would love to talk to you about, because the way that perception and reality is, I mean, again, there is so much information we're not picking up, because if we picked up every piece of information, we would be standing in the corner, not moving and not doing anything. We have to filter out things to function and move and do stuff. So yes, I'd love to talk to you about that, but there's a lot of connections that I see on the blue front. And again, with synesthesia, those people are seeing blue a lot. So yes, I would love to speak to you greater on this. And again, you see in Indian texts, a lot of the gods are in the color blue.
Blue and purple.
So, yes.
Like, I had a dream with, once I was out in the middle of the woods, and there was like this big sacrificial slab of stone in the middle of a forest or jungle. And on top of it was a creature that basically it was an elephant. But it was an elephant that could stand upright. And I later learned it was Ganesh, I think.
Yes, I was going to say, I'm saying connections.
And it had that lightish purple, bluish hue to its body. And I don't know why it was on this sacrificial thing. But, and Tyler, I see that you're still there and you've been waiting patiently. Thank you very much.
I will quickly go off in a minute, but could I ask you what your connection on synesthesia is? How does it manifest to you?
Sometimes when I hear things, I see different colors, and sometimes very often I will hear things with kinesthetics. So if I feel something, I'll get sounds, usually like loud thundering sounds and echoing, like in giant chambers. Sometimes it will stimulate different musical tones and notes. Also, when I hear things, it will give me visuals, and vice versa. If I see certain things, it gives me either physical sensations or cause auditory hallucinations. But I found that lately I've been able to conjure them at will. And a lot of things that I read about, I'm able to start to manifest very quickly. Like I read about the monks in the Himalayas who are able to meditate doing something called a tantric mahamudra meditation and increase their body temperature to feverish levels that they're able to melt the ice around them. And I started having hot flashes after I started doing that. So a lot of things tend to really start to, and that's just something of me visualizing and thinking about something, and then it starts to have effects on my body. And so
let's say, yeah.
I really haven't explored it too much. Yeah, sure.
I'll ask you two more questions, and then I can let your next guest get on and come and talk to yourself. Do you ever hear sounds that other people don't hear?
All the time.
At a constant level.
And I also, not even just at a constant level, but also because there's a frequency band, there's something else that's going on there that I have to tune out. But also I hear things that other people should hear that are in the physical world. Like what do you describe it as? I don't want to load the question because I know a couple of answers to this, which I don't know, but there are there's a lot of crossover between things that are happening physiologically and things that I can't explain. Like, for example, once I was sitting in a classroom and my left ear got really warm and hot and burning and started ringing a lot. And then I heard someone's phone ring in the classroom, and it was a girl who was on the opposite side of me, on the opposite side of the room. So it was like an electromagnetic signal came in from wherever to her phone. Yeah, and so, I got it early. But then other times, it's something different.
Do you ever hear a hum?
Yes, I hear humming in everything. And what's really interesting,
I'm just going to ask you this, and obviously I know you're going to answer truthfully on this. Is it the kind of hum that if you put earplugs in, you'd still hear it, and nobody else could hear it?
I'm not sure, but I haven't really experimented with that much. I just know that it's kind of pervasive.
And you can't find a source for it.
Well, it doesn't have a source. It's just... It's
I'm going to explain something. Well, not explain. I'm going to tell you what I found out recently in multiple things. Also, do you ever hear high-pitched sounds coming from plugs or sockets?
Yes, but I can just attribute that to electromagnetism. I mean, there's a lot of that. And I also started to notice when I started... Right, but I've also started to notice when I experimented and I created dozens and dozens of binaural beats, that I noticed that by tuning myself to be able to hear the binaural beats, now I hear those binaural oscillations and fluctuations and everything more clearly now too.
Okay, I'm going to tell you some information which you can tell me to shut up about, because it's one of my fun topics with all these things. And I know obviously you got somebody else waiting. There is a woman called Beth who is searching for the hum, and she's going around prehistoric sites and stone circles, for example, or places on Europe as well as South America, and she's getting it financed because people who have excited nervous systems, say damaged in some way, and it's kind of altered, it's not tuning out that. People who are neurodivergent, and also, again, for example, like yourself with synesthesia, they are also sometimes picking up this frequency, whether it be continental movement with geology, as in putting pressure on quartz, which then puts more energy into the environment, as in electrical stimulation, which then obviously makes us ring like tuning forks, and we only hear it, but others won't hear it because we're picking it up through our bones, because your bones actually pick up more sound when you've tuned out your auditory. You can't ever not hear sound, unfortunately. There's also the fact that within star systems, when there's explosions, obviously those waves come through galaxies and they can hit certain areas on the planet at certain times as we revolve and spin, which also makes sound as well. So there's a lot of investigation within to the hum and the high frequency. And if you want to know a bit more about that, I can also put you in touch with the woman. But I am of the same state where I was in a populated area. I thought I was going mad. I could hear this hum. Nobody else could. And then I got myself into nature and found that it wasn't all the time. And then suddenly it would turn up, and then I'd be looking for aircraft or power lines, and there was none of those around or anything else. Then I went onto a different continent entirely over a number of years. Then I found it out in complete fields and wilderness. And it wasn't me. I was picking this up. And this is the thing which I've now found, that people with head injuries, as I said, nervous system problems and other bits and pieces, they are more susceptible for picking up this information. And it's fascinating to me.
Like how some people, you can knock on the side of a television or old school radio and kind of get the signal come back in because you're moving around some of the components to close their circuits more properly or whatnot.
It's a bit like that on the human body, yeah. But some of us have just had our filters removed and we're just picking up more information, like yourself with synesthesia, where at childhood, birth, all your senses are connected together, as you know, but later on they separate to become when you're an adult, but yours connected together and stayed that way for the way that you pick up information. But you can, under hypnosis, actually make people have synesthesia with certain connection points as well. It's amazing how malleable the brain is.
I actually have a degree in clinical hypnosis from one of the best hypnosis schools in the world called the Hypnosis Motivation Institute in Tarzana, California. And I've had some really interesting experiences with that.
Are you familiar with Steve Bierman, the MD in America? Sorry, I missed that. What did you say?
Yes, I am familiar with Steve Bierman.
We had him 2 weeks ago to actually talk on NLP and also hypnosis in health and caregiving, on how you can actually utilize that instead of using some drugs for, say, relocating dislocated bones and also reducing blood flow and helping emotional situations. So it's amazing how it can be utilized where you don't always need synthetic stuff to change a format of a person, but you can also utilize it with helping with their diseases and making it better for them. So again, another area I'd love to talk to you about.
There's some fascinating stuff into there. I mean, there's a lot when it comes to hypnosis and altering the mind for it to have intentionally to have effects on the body. So it is a long rabbit hole.
I'm going to let your other guests come up because I've monopolized your time, but it's been fascinating.
That's what this is all about. That's what this is all about, Paul. Don't worry about that. I spoke to Tyler. He's coming back up earlier, and I don't mean to make him wait too long, but our conversation was great, and I really do appreciate you sharing your perspectives, and I definitely want to make sure that we stay connected and we speak again soon. So.
Excellent. And if you celebrate the festive seasons, I hope they all go well for you.
Same to you, Paul.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Be well. Well, that was a fascinating conversation with Paul from Perceptions Today. And I've got Tyler coming back up, who might have some more interesting stuff to share, something that was triggered maybe by what we were talking about. Hey, Tyler.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on. I actually wish that last guest and we could all just sit in a room. Because
I can arrange that.
He had some things that I would actually love to talk about, and I didn't necessarily want to talk about when I was on earlier, because I didn't know I didn't want to change it away from altering our core beliefs, but and I still kind of won't. I just wanted to say that I think you did misunderstand me earlier when I said it did change my core belief. Maybe I just didn't say that to defend you. I didn't say that it changed my core belief, but it did change my core belief. I just wanted to put that out there.
Sure.
But yeah, when he was talking about quantum immortality, I've actually had the similar thought, or even feeling. I would say I've had this feeling where I was I'll be driving, for example, and then all of a sudden I'll have this really weird thought, I'm sure we've all had the thought, like, what if like an accident would happen, or like, man, that was close. That accident, that was really close. Like, I almost like hit this wall, or I almost hit this car, or I almost like hit this barrier. And then I've always like thought, like, that was so close, and like I just happened to miss it. Like, what if like in another dimension that did happen, and like I just like instantly flipped into a new one, and now I'm here, and like to me nothing happened. It was just really close. It was just a close call. I've had that thought for a very long time, ever since I was really young. So I love that he brought up the, I guess, quantum suicide. I would always refer to it as quantum immortality. But I don't know, have you ever experienced anything like that?
Well, just as you, it's always been something that I intuitively felt as a child, and I think that this is something that a lot of people feel and think about, but they dismiss because it's kind of discouraged as we get older. So yeah.
Yeah, and like to hit on more about like I guess being a child. So like it's a shame that like we kind of like shy away from things that like we are experiencing only because they aren't I guess normal, to say, to lack better words. I don't want to say like they're special, but it's people like wouldn't either believe it or see it because like I guess it's ingrained a certain type of behavior after a while. I'm not doing a good enough job explaining what I'm saying, but to add on to that, it's like when I was a kid, like, okay, ever since I was a kid, I've actually kind of heard this high-pitched humming or ringing I think that the last guest was talking about. And whereas like I would go into a silent room and it would seem to like silent room and it would seem to be like I could hear it there, and it almost seemed like it could or would be louder in silence than it would be in non-silence. And then like as I got older, I convinced myself like maybe it was just tinnitus, but like I haven't had exposure to like loud noises when I was younger that would have damaged my hearing. But I just chalked it up to tinnitus. But I still to this day like can hear that like high pitched like ringing, and like I don't believe I have hearing damage.
A lot of that stuff I do also I do chalk it up to tinnitus, most of it, and because tinnitus can be induced or caused by many other things other than loud noises. It could be like calcium builds up. It could be other things inside your nervous system channels that can cause it. But that's not to say that there are not other causes of it. And even as I was talking to Paul, who was a previous guest, I said that I do hear these things in lots of other places and notice the oscillations and things more frequently. But a lot of it, I think that one of the best things that we all could do is to go through an investigation, eliminating tinnitus first, and then going from there, because tinnitus can come in many forms. So that should be something we should look at first.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I'd love to like know more about that, because even to this day, I would have thought it was tinnitus up until I guess Paul was talking about it, and then I was like, is this something that others experience then too, and we just aren't talking about it? I have a question for you, because I know my girlfriend and I can relate to this, but can you sense like a fire without seeing, hearing, or smelling it?
I don't think that I have, because I had a recent experience where there was a fire in a building that I was in that was just a few, like maybe 20 feet away from me, and I didn't know it, just in another room, and I didn't know, so I don't think so. Yeah.
I guess my description of it is like I call it like a tingly spidey sense, because like I've always been able to kind of sense something's burning without having seen it, heard like the crackling, or heard about it, or even smelling it. It's just like the hair on my like arms kind of just like raises or stand on end, and it's really bizarre, and I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, that's fascinating. No, I don't. That's one thing I don't have a fire sense. I don't have that one.
But yeah, it's all that was interesting what Paul had to say. I would love to like have a conversation with him about like a lot of things, because like, man, he was talking about like, well, yeah. I don't want to just like commandeer this and start talking about anything.
Well, I can arrange for us to have a group chat. So I have a format that we can use where all of us can speak together at the same time and have a conversation where all of us are present, or even more, so we can have a conference.
I think that'd be fun. And the only reason why I'm getting self-conscious now is because I know before Paul came on, you were going to end your show, so I didn't want to just keep you here.
I have time. I was going to end it because I felt like I was finished with the reading, and then also I had spoken to the three of you, and I just was going to move on to something else. I would have come on and started recording or talking about something else, so it's fine.
Okay. So then I guess I want to just bounce it.
And I see and also don't be self-conscious, but I'm acknowledging that Desiree, I see you're back in the queue again, so that's all.
Okay, I'll try to make a few of these quick. Let's see. I did take a few notes while Paul was talking because I wanted to I guess bounce them off you. So I've had this thought, or I guess kind of belief, that happened after, I guess, my psychedelic experience, where I started kind of being open to spirituality. That I feel like, I could be wrong, but I feel like psychedelics might have spawned religion as we know it. And then maybe through years, maybe that's changed. And I feel like it at least spawned transcendental experiences. I don't know why I feel that way or think that way, other than my only quote unquote evidence I may have, which I don't even think is evidence, is cows are worshipped in India, I think, and mushrooms can grow off their feces. So I wonder if they're protected and pre-modern due to something like that.
No, it's a good theory there. It's possible. I never really made that connection, but it seems plausible that the reason why they worship cows could be in part because of the psychedelic experiences that grow out of their poop.
I mean, it could be, and I sometimes wonder, in a similar regard, if that's why. So the U.S. or CIA studied psychedelics briefly to try to use it for mind control, and then it seemed once they realized that it kind of didn't work in that way, and also I would say made people not want to be controlled necessarily by a regime. I wonder if they spawned the war on drugs as a war on consciousness for the counterculture and politics itself, mixed with underlying racism. I don't know your stance on that, but I've always kind of wondered that, because it seems like it could be that way. I don't know your take on it.
I haven't really thought about it, but it's food for thought. It's something that I would think about. I don't exactly know. There's a lot of things that I'm learning about and that I'd like to definitely explore. So
okay. And then I think a few other things that I just wanted to I guess just throw out there before I head out for the night is I think it's interesting that in some other, I guess, non-modern or non-first world societies, there always seems to be an elder of some sort that is wise and helps people go through spiritual journeys. And our culture may not know what that is, but I would view them as probably shamans, probably maybe going through maybe an ayahuasca ceremony. And I feel that might be more common spread in pre-modern society than we are talking about for some reason. I don't know necessarily why it feels like that's been swept under the rug. As far as
there's a lot of reasons for that, and one of the interesting things about that is that in psychiatry, it's really swept under the rug. A lot of indigenous cultures and peoples actually used to take the people who had what would be considered negative psychiatric experiences and train them to be shamans. And I'm using the word shaman in a very general sense, but that's one of the things that used to happen. Dude, I just found $40 in a notebook just now. That's so interesting.
Really?
I just opened up a black notebook. I just pulled out of my backpack to take notes on, and on one page there's a $20 bill, and another page there's another $20 bill. That's hilarious.
That's amazing.
Anyway,
I feel like that's one of those weird idiosyncrasies of like, I would say, like, trying to show you that, like, there's something larger to, like, this life than you and I know. Like,
sure, and I wish I would have paid attention to the pages I pulled them out of, because that would have been even more interesting with the notes are on. So.
Right?
But,
if you have an inkling, I'd love to hear about that, like, maybe later. But yeah,
I sent you a link. Yeah, I was saying I sent you a link, and I sent Paul a link, and I'm going to send it to Desiree and whoever else wants, where we can have a group meeting, even if desired, a video chat. So there's an option that we have where we can talk all together, and then we can also go on video if we want to. You have the option to be on or not on video, but still all together speaking and talking. So, but yeah, the thing is that. So this is why I'm learning, because a couple things you brought up, I haven't had experiences of, like being able to sense fire from a distance without any of the other perceptics and things like that. So, this is interesting and very, very amazing that we all have these great varying experiences that we can learn from each other.
Yeah, I agree with you, and yeah, I'd love to have that chat hopefully soon. So I'll just sign off that I'm right there with Paul saying I think like the brain's like a signal receiver to like consciousness, and maybe what Desiree was saying about soul is what I would say is consciousness. And I think I'm not defined by my mate sack. My mate sack is just like holding on to my consciousness for this path on this life. That's how it feels.
We're definitely I think we're gonna be onto something here. This is gonna be a good meetup that we'll all have. So,
all right. Well, thank you for having me back, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Oh, sure, for sure, Tyler. Let's keep in touch.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks.
Be well. And I've got Desiree coming back again. And let's see. Yes, we are all one, as we are all entangled in many ways. Indeed. Thank you for that perceptions today, Paul. I appreciate that. And Desiree. This is, I'm starting to see that this might be an area that I need to continue to focus on in my sci-fi communications and many other things. Welcome back, Desiree. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I actually have to be somewhere in a little bit myself. So I just wanted to briefly, I guess, elaborate or correct some of the points that I was trying to make earlier. But first, I wanted to say how shocked I was when I first heard Tyler say that he could kind of detect fire or that something's burning from a distance, because I also share that same experience myself ever since I was little.
No.
Yeah, it's not, you don't smell anything. It's this like, for me, I get goosebumps. My skin, it's like my skin detects it. And so I get this like kind of weird shiver, like kind of feels like an electrical like impulse like that goes like kind of throughout my body, and causes goosebumps. And so oftentimes I'm able to kind of I know when something's burning before anybody else in the room does, because of that skin reaction, I guess, to the goosebumps. So I just found that was fascinating, because I'd never met anybody who had the same phenomena. But I guess to circle back to what your talk is titled. So I think I was focusing a little bit too much on the spirituality aspect of it, just because I
don't think so. No. You can focus on whatever you want. These were open talks, so it's all good.
Yeah, I was limiting myself in a way though, because I failed to mention that your core beliefs are. At the end of the day, your core beliefs are an accumulation of all the experiences that have shaped you throughout your life, right? Spirituality or not, that's your core beliefs are, a product of like what you've experienced, what you've been through, maybe some inherent traits that you were born with. But our core beliefs ultimately lie in that. So with the guest that joined after me, she... I don't remember.
Graciela Moore.
Yeah, I think that, psychedelics are a tool more than anything. If you use them in the right way, if you use them because you're wanting to have a fun time, I don't think that's the right reason to use them. I mean, unless that's, you know, what you want to use them for. You might not have the best experience if that's what you do. But if you use it as a tool for introspection, it can be incredibly valuable, and it can alter your core beliefs. Because I loved how Tyler was saying that, if I understood him correctly, he was kind of saying that it was more an experience of the self. Yeah, I mean, outside of even spirituality, it gave me, it helped with self-esteem issues, you know. I looked in the mirror, you know, kind of when I was on mushrooms, and I was looking at myself, and, you know, I'd been having a really hard time with my I guess self-image at that period. I looked at myself and I felt beautiful for the first time. It was the I guess visuals. The visual aspect was temporary, but the self-love stayed afterwards. I felt beautiful after I stopped. Yeah, you know. So even outside of spirituality, your core beliefs can be altered by anything. And if you go into psychedelics, you know, wanting
feeling
to
beautiful is a spiritual experience, I think.
It is. Learning to love yourself, you know, learning to be kind to yourself.
Yeah, I remember once I had an experience where I was a kid and I used to think I was ugly, and people used to pick on me all the time because I wore thick glasses and I was skinny. And then once I was with my dad, who was a handyman, and he was one of his jobs that he was doing was helping somebody to move out of their home. And I remember sitting in the truck and looking into the mirror, and I was smiling about something, and I realized, I was like, you know, I'm pretty cute.
And that stuck with me. Yeah, that doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, brought on by a psychedelic. You know, it could be just something that, it could be anything else. So a psychedelic could be a tool to get there, but it's not the only tool to get there. You know, it's not the only tool to get to spirituality. It's kind of what you make of it. So it's very powerful if you go into it with the mindset of allowing it to potentially reshape your beliefs. Because spirituality aside, I thought about things a lot differently. I became a kinder person. It was a huge empathy thing for me. I was able to. I sat there and I cried about people's experiences and thought of them in ways that I couldn't relate to before, and it's a highly mental thing for me. You know, the visuals that. I guess it's a cool add-on. It's a cool bonus, but I really like what it does for me mentally, because I'm just really able to think of things in a frame of mind that I feel that it breaks down the barriers that we inflict on ourselves, not with intent, but it's very good at breaking down walls and kind of opening up your mind to different beliefs that you may not have thought of, without the aid of it. It's not anything that you can't accomplish without a psychedelic, but it certainly can help. So,
right. Well, I mean, a lot of those experiences cross over. That'll be also. A lot of those experiences cross over because they are. I call it. Well, I've heard the term cross phenomenology, and it's something like, for example, lucid dreams can turn into out-of-body experiences, can turn into visits from aliens, can turn into, and on and on and on. You understand? So there a lot of these things cross over with each other, and not necessarily are isolated from each other. So perhaps I could have had low blood sugar at the time when I was in the truck waiting for my dad. There's so many different things that can happen, and emotions mixed with that can cause these types of experiences. So yeah, you're right. It's not just one thing that can cause it, but sometimes it's good to have that little push. When we have it, like you said, you felt like you first experienced yourself as being beautiful, and then you started to be kinder to people, and so on.
Yeah, it's kind of like how, depression, for instance, I think I don't know the exact statistics on this, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that, psychotherapy can be just as, if not more effective than medical intervention, SSRIs. And so there's multiple paths, I guess, to maybe arrive to the same conclusion. So, like you were saying, it's a good little boost, if someone needs the boost of, for example, an SSRI. I don't know how you feel about those, but,
Well, I actually just read a Neuroscience News article recently about it that said that, I'm not going to get into it. I'm not a medical doctor, but they're just basically, a lot of the evidence is saying that the placebo response is what's actually working and not the drugs themselves.
That's a part of it, because I read the same study, and I watched a podcast.
No, you didn't read the same study. You read a similar study. I'm talking about a completely different one that just came out just this month, a few days ago.
Oh, a few days ago. There was one that came out, I believe in May of this year, and it talked about how SSRIs are they're useful in ways that we misunderstood before. It's not so much like an imbalance of serotonin in your brain, but there is a component of antidepressants that does help. I don't think it's a strict
let's look at this.
Why it helps some people.
Well, let's look at it this way. Let's look at it this way. Here's what they actually found, because now they're able to track it very specifically. They basically genetically engineered neurons in the brain, specifically the receptor sites for serotonin, with something called green fluorescent protein, GFP. And then they introduced serotonin to these nerve cells, and what would happen is they called it S-darken, is now what they started to call this genetically engineered nerve cell, because when serotonin attached to it, the green fluorescent protein then started to dim or darken and stop glowing as much. So now they're able to specifically exactly track where serotonin is attaching itself in the brain and exactly what kind of effects is happening, because they can actually see it attaching. So there's no more speculation about if it's attaching to the neurons or what's happening, because SSRI stands.
And that's all for now.